Hey, it's me, Jen again, and today we're going to talk about just exactly how you can pursue non-surgical procedures like RFA and PEI to save your thyroid from surgery. Don't go anywhere. Many have asked me how to pursue these non-surgical treatments for their benign thyroid nodules. I don't know how to do this. I'm so overwhelmed. How do I even get started? Patients may seek guidance from their doctors only to find that they don't even know about these very safe and effective but minimally invasive procedures. I'm going to take you through the steps that I took on my journey to RFA treatment and give you some helpful tips so that you don't have to go under the knife unless you absolutely have to. By the way, be sure to hit that like button and consider subscribing so you don't miss any of my upcoming content on this channel. Step 1 is your diagnosis. If you're watching this channel, chances are that either you or someone you know has been diagnosed with thyroid nodules. Whether intentionally or incidentally, growths that don't belong on the thyroid have been discovered. This is the part where some people, including me in 2014, freak out. So in 2014, I just went to a routine annual visit with my OBGYN doctor. He was looking at me and he just kind of stopped. He said, "I think you've got a lump in your throat." And he felt of my neck, and before I knew it, I was being sent home with orders for a thyroid ultrasound, and I was terrified from that point on that I had thyroid cancer. Don't panic though. Did you know that basically half of all people have thyroid nodules? They're super common and they're usually totally not a big deal. You might need a biopsy to discover if the nodules are benign or malignant. Biopsies can sound scary, but again, try not to panic because 95% of nodules are benign. It took weeks for me to get my ultrasound and then to have a biopsy of my thyroid nodules, and I was just terrified that whole time with all the not knowing, and I finally got my results and it was benign, and I was like, oh, what a relief, you know, because I had just convinced myself that it was thyroid cancer. I mean, the ultrasound doc was like, "This thing is huge, it looks really ugly and gnarly, you've got quite a bit going on in here." I had no idea. It was the first I'd ever heard of it. I had kind of like this personal crisis all that time that was going by waiting for these results, and you know, I didn't really know anything about thyroid nodules or cancer or any of that back then, and nobody told me either. Don't do what I did and have a personal crisis. Educate yourself about the statistics on thyroid nodules, that they're almost always benign and they're very rarely fatal. This will help you hopefully sleep a little bit better till you get your results. Step 2 is to weigh your treatment options. Now, if your nodules are small and not causing any symptoms, doctors will probably just watch them and monitor periodically for growth with ultrasound. But if your nodules are larger, causing compressive symptoms or producing thyroid hormones, typically this is when doctors will recommend either half or total thyroid removal surgery. This is another point when most people, including me last year, freak out. I knew that I had some past complications that just really made surgery a bad idea for me, and I really knew that I wanted to keep my thyroid because it's kind of important. I dove into the internet and medical journals that are online. There's really quite a few of them you can read for free online. They're really tough to understand. I don't have a medical background, so you know, I had to do a lot of Googling of words, but I knew after just a short amount of time of researching that I did in fact have another option. Patients who are not comfortable with the idea of surgery or aren't good candidates for surgery may seek out RFA and PEI as safe and effective alternatives to surgery to treat and shrink their thyroid nodules while keeping their thyroid intact. Remember, you may have to go rogue here. A lot of doctors may not approve of this treatment simply because they just don't know about it. And you have a voice that needs to be heard if you feel very strongly that this is something you want to go for. Don't be afraid to speak up and educate yourself on what the options are. Knowledge is power. This is your body and your life, and you're responsible for taking good care of it. Don't settle for surgery unless you absolutely have to, because surgery is permanent and your thyroid is really important. Which non-surgical treatment is right for you? RFA is for thyroid nodules that are solid, and PEI is for thyroid cysts that are fluid-filled. To know which ones you have, ask your doctor for a copy of your ultrasound, and this information will be written in the report. Having this information will be very helpful as you do research on which doctors you want to consider for your treatment. Step 3 is to reach out to RFA or PEI doctors and to send your medical records. To find the list of doctors that we know provide RFA and PEI, go to the Files section of our Facebook group, and there you can find their contact information and reach out to them directly. Ask them what information they need from you to determine if you are a candidate, as well as any questions you may have about the procedure itself. Once they have that information from you, they'll be able to let you know if you indeed are a candidate for this procedure. In my case, I sent 2 benign biopsy reports, a copy of an ultrasound and a CT scan, and copies of my thyroid lab work. I did this with 2 of the 3 doctors that I knew provided RFA at the time that I first discovered it. Step 4 is to find out what your payment options are. Be sure to ask them if they accept insurance, if they will file your insurance, if they only accept cash, and if they have payment plan options. Not all insurances cover this procedure yet, but more and more are all the time. The best thing that you can do is to just call your insurance company and ask. If your doctor accepts insurance, they may be able to assist you going through that process. Costs for this procedure differ everywhere. The most expensive and the cheapest aren't necessarily the best or the worst. Be sure to ask the doctor about their experience level and let that be the main driver in helping you make your decision. By the way, you may have to travel to have this procedure. Unfortunately, RFA and PEI are not available everywhere yet, but more doctors are being trained all the time and our list of known providers is growing. We are very fortunate in the United States to have nearly 30 doctors offering these 2 procedures. We also know of several doctors outside of the United States that offer these procedures. To find out who they are, go to the list in the Files section of our Facebook group. Step number 5 is decision time. Once you have gathered all the necessary information and weighed the pros and cons, make a decision on who you would like to pursue treatment with. I recommend that you get at least 2 doctors to make recommendations on your case. There aren't many patient testimonials online, but we do have several in our Facebook group. If you're seriously considering any of the RFA or PEI doctors on our list, make sure to ask the group if anyone has experience with that particular doctor. You might just find someone who can give you very specific and helpful information that can help you make the right decision. If you have to travel to another state or even another country for treatment, you'll have to book your travel and a place to stay. I highly recommend that you stay somewhere with a kitchen, like an Airbnb or an extended stay hotel. This comes in very handy when you're trying to recover and you don't really feel like going out to eat. It also can help you save money on your dining costs. Some hotels will give a discount if you tell them that you're traveling for a medical procedure. Some hospitals have a nearby hospitality house where patients and their accompanying family members can stay for an extremely discounted cost. Be sure to ask about this when making inquiries about treatment. Last summer, when I discovered radiofrequency ablation, there were only 3 doctors that I could find in the whole country that were doing it. And so I contacted all 3 of them. And one was pretty far away, and I would have had to have flown out there several times because that doctor wanted to do all of his own labs and imaging, and I was going to have to make at least 3 trips out there, and I just couldn't make that happen because I'm a mom and I have a lot going on. So that kind of marked him off the list. And then the other 2 doctors, I actually sent them my records and they reviewed my case, and both were great. And ultimately I just chose the one that was closest because I was able to drive there instead of having to fly. So that was how I made my choice. Here's a tip. I just recently had an appointment with a local doctor who performs radiofrequency ablation on other parts of the body. And I asked him if he could perhaps do thyroid radiofrequency ablation, and he said, sure. But after we talked for a little while, I learned that he had not been specifically trained in thyroid RFA. And so the approach that he had was that they would burn outside of the borders of the nodule. And this is problematic because in thyroid RFA, doctors have to be trained very precisely on how to undertreat the nodule to stay inside of it so that they don't actually kill healthy thyroid tissue that's around it. So make sure if you happen to find a local doctor who's willing to perform RFA on you, ask them, have they been trained specifically in the thyroid? If they haven't, you might want to go somewhere else. Once you weigh all the pros and cons, then you can make an informed decision about what would be best for you. Step 6 is to have your treatment and then share your results. There's a significant lack of information available about this from the perspective of the patient, but you can help change that by sharing what you know and what you've learned as you've gone through this experience. Make a difference by sharing your testimonial in the Facebook group. You might just help someone going through a very similar situation. When it came time for me to have my procedure last summer, my husband and I drove up to Virginia. It's about a 9-hour trip. And the first day when we got there, I had a consult with my doctor, and he did an exam and an ultrasound, and we discussed how everything was going to go. And then the next day I had my procedure. And then the next day we were kind of thinking we would drive back home, but I really wasn't feeling up to the drive. So we decided to stay one more night. The next day after that, I was feeling much better and I was able to handle all the little bumps in the car on the way home. It took me, just a few days to make the trip. Some people can handle, flying out, getting their procedure, and then flying right back. I had a pretty massive nodule that got treated, so I had a bit more soreness, I think. But if your nodule's not that big, you may be able to just go have it done and then go right back home. No big deal. Step 7 is to follow up with your doctor. Typically after RFA and PEI, your doctor will periodically want to see ultrasounds of your thyroid to see how much the nodule has shrunk. In my case, I have these done locally and then send a copy of the disc to my doctor. Then he reviews them and discusses the results with me. Last week, I had my telemedicine consult, which was my 6-month follow-up with my doctor that did my RFA procedure. And it was really easy. He emailed me a link to the app that we used, and I just had to download that app on my phone. And we had our little teleconference, and it was super easy, and I didn't have to travel. I just did it from the comfort of my own home. I just had to make sure that I had a quiet spot to go. Yeah, it took about 30-45 minutes. Super easy. Make sure when you make appointments like this that you double check your time zones. I actually made a mistake when calculating the time that I nearly missed my appointment by 2 hours, which would have been a disaster, but thankfully I figured it out about 20 minutes before the appointment, so I didn't miss it. Make sure that you don't do what I did and double check your time zones on Google. Set up your phone in an area that has good light, few distractions, and a good internet connection. So when we had the telemedicine consult, my doctor and I discussed my progress. My nodule has shrunk by more than 50%, which is very exciting. If you recall from another video, I talked about how he was able to treat up here 80% of it, and that 20% of it was down here below my collarbone. And so as that upper portion shrinks, it moves the lower portion up. While this upper portion was shrinking, all of my symptoms were basically gone. I felt tremendous improvement, and it was really fast too. I had improvement within a week or two of the procedure. Only here, just in the last week or two, have I had a little bit of my symptoms returning much more mildly than I had them before. And we think that that's because just as this lower portion is moving up, it's starting to cause some of the same symptoms. So we decided it was time to move forward and have the next procedure, and I can't wait to have it done and get this thing taken care of. And hopefully you won't be able to see this lump right here anymore. Also, completely unrelated to my thyroid, I have this really big kidney cyst that is the size of a baseball. We actually discovered it on an MRI in like 2013 when I had a car accident, and it was no big deal. It was not causing any symptoms. They just told me to keep an eye on it. And over the years, just like my thyroid nodule, it has grown and it's gotten bigger, and it's to the point now where it kind of gives me a dull ache in my side. So while I am in Virginia having my procedure on my thyroid, I am also going to have PEI on this cyst on my kidney. And so I will be able to tell you not only what it's like to have 2 RFAs, but to have 1 PEI. Stay tuned for that. So I started this channel kind of because I was looking to do something that I wish I could have found for myself back when this whole fiasco started, where I needed to address this big old thyroid nodule. And I felt like no one knew what I was going through. I couldn't find any information about what patients went through when they had these procedures. And now our Facebook group is up over 600 people, and I have several patient testimonials in the group of people who have gone and had this procedure. And so if you're looking into this and you need to know, hey, what should I expect? And what's it like going to this doctor or that doctor, or, you know, any number of questions you might have as a patient, take a look at the group, because this is what it's here for. When I went to Virginia, I had no idea what to expect. And I was really anxious about going to the hospital and having this done, just because I had no clue what to expect. And I was so fortunate. It was an answered prayer that I made contact with this woman the night before who had been through this same procedure with the same doctor at the same hospital. It was amazing. And I can't express to you how wonderful and helpful that was to me. And so I want to give that to people who are going through this same situation. So if you're going through this, that's what this group is for. That's what this channel is for. If you know someone who's going through this, share this with them, because it just might be a huge help to them going through this time. You know, it's really kind of stressful. I see stories all the time about people who are dealing with thyroid nodules, and it's terrifying to them. And I just want to be a source of comfort to them, because I've been through it and I know what it's like to walk in your shoes. And so, yeah, that's what this is all about. Well, that's all for now. Stay tuned for more videos, including more interviews with doctors and resources about treatments for thyroid nodules. If you'd like to learn more, take a look at these videos here for more information, or consider joining the Facebook group. Don't forget to like and subscribe, and as always, educate yourself and always be your own health advocate.